This is Chad Everett Brochures. I'm the host. Today's topic is in the book of your life. This one is to help kind of give a little bit more clarity. I've realized in my life that a lot of times you'll speak about something, or we'll go to the interpersonal portion. You speak about something with somebody, and they think by what you just said as your belief as a complete belief. Oh, where you may be sharing a insight that you've had on something, and you tell a story about, Tommy was over there, and the way he was talking about it is, Tommy was really engaged in that thing, and he said this. And he said that you can only he said fences go up that way. As he was working out on the farm or whatever, and the person listening would say, well, is that the way that Tommy sees, the only way that Tommy sees it? Because I know other ways. In this example, Tommy spoke in a context that person understood at that time, but if you were to go back and speak to Tommy, he would likely say, well, there's other methods to do, but based off of the circumstances that we were in, that was the most likely or desirable way. Perhaps the fence laying machine that they use, which they do have connecting pieces to certain types of equipment that make it easier to put fences on the ground, perhaps that's out of order, it's out of gas, the hydraulic fluid's out or something like that, and therefore he went back to doing it another way that he found is efficient. This video is not about Tommy doing work in the yard or on the farm. It's to try to create an example of when people listen to you, they think that what you just said is the absolute belief that you have. And it kind of end the conversation without realizing on either part, yours or the other person, that you've been positioned as or pigeonholed into that's the only way you think. And it happens often. Like me saying the book of life, who's holding your pen, who's writing it, who's your author, it could put some sort of narrow perspective on it, which is fine for early stages of learning a new idea. But over time, it reduces your value in that subject if you don't believe the other person has more insight than what was offered and you categorize them as only knowing something so much. Because you don't look to them for more resources, or you might think that's the only way to do it, therefore that's the only way I'm going to do it, and you reduce your own exploration in that subject. To make it less esoteric and a little bit more tangible again, it is, where somebody, you can be in whatever conversation it is, and they kind of push you into, well, that's the only way you think, so therefore, jumping to conclusions about what your beliefs are, therefore you become a limited resource in their endeavors, because they don't think that you have more opportunities or more abilities. I hope that this isn't as confusing as it may come across to be. It's more of what you hear somebody say is not always the totality of what they mean. There could be other things. They just, if they share everything that's on their mind at one time, it can really seem a bit much. It may seem like you're thinking entirely too much about one subject. There's all kinds of things that can actually lose a party. Like I could very well have lost some people in this video already, just simply because of the way that I'm trying to create examples of this without, putting a particular conversation that I've had where people may feel like they've been outed. I don't want that for anybody, because I do have a good deal of friends that also watch these videos and or the episodes if you're on the podcast version. So, okay. So with that being said, I realized that by saying who's writing the pages in the book of your life, that it may look or come across as if it's always about work. It's always about hardships or sacrificing or things like that. And that's not life. Life is not about always sacrificing. You can take that path if that's one you choose, but that's your choice. I choose not to. I choose that I do have to have times when I sacrifice. While I'm exercising, I could easily be doing something else. But I'm not. I'm exercising. So that's a sacrifice. Whatever the other thing is sacrificed for me to be able to work out for a goal to have my body perform a certain way, for health reasons, for aesthetics, for satisfaction and a process of work to accomplishment. That's another variable that comes into play. I do it for those reasons versus not doing it and then let something else take the void. Because when you're not doing one thing, there's a void of time, something else can fill it. Discipline concepts. It is a good idea to come up with your reward allowances, the things that you do that are going to be fun, the things that bring joy to your life. You don't want to always be just work. Now, there's times whenever you have to shift the balance enough that you may have to do 90% work, 95% work, and only 5% play. But I don't suggest to do that as a long-term thing. I suggest in the big scheme of things, make it something that if you're going to, give yourself a time frame so that your personality doesn't change over hardship for too long, because you sustain hardship for a particular amount of time. You run the risk of changing your personality. You want to have a summit that you'll reach that point and then look back and say, I've done a lot of work, therefore I'm going to reward myself. You also don't want to fall on the other side of it, which is I worked my butt off for the last 2 weeks to earn so much money. That money was, through the last 2 weeks, was going to go for something that's going to be a step forward in my life or a progression towards my goals. But now that I have, an extra, couple $1,000s, I'm going to go get the new TV. And you just sank yourself back to the first place. You just have a nice new TV now. It doesn't mean that's a bad thing or a wrong thing. Perhaps you did need a TV, but at the same time, if that takes part of your goal away from you or pushes it back, which is going to be a greater frustration? You not reaching your goal, or you not having the TV? Or is there a compromise variable? I'm a big fan of create a budget. Create a budget, which is its own scheduling, which is if you're going to want to get or need to get a new TV, then what's your budget for the new TV? What's your budget for life goal? And what's your budget for daily living costs and expenses? I'm a homeowner. I have to have more than one budget. It's not a rent budget. It's a mortgage plus, house upkeep budget. It's not just cleaning. I have to replace things in my home if something goes bad or breaks. So I have to have a budget that works for those things. Otherwise, I could be sitting there in a very bad situation. Excuse me. So, same concept with finances is you can apply to your life in the way that you schedule things. Schedule fun. Schedule it in. Give yourself, something that maybe a bike ride. Bike rides are interesting and fun, and they're a dynamic type of thing because a lot of times you're not riding uphill the entire time. You have the uphill portion, which is your work section. You get through that, get to the top, and then if you get to the top of a hill, typically you're going to have a downhill option as well at some point, and that's the reward sequence, which is the, as a child would go, whee, as they're headed down the hill. Excuse me. But that'd be the reward sequence side of it. Give yourself those kinds of budgets so that you're not overdoing reward. I mean, the whole concept of going on a vacation is that you work all year, then you have your vacation time, 40 hours or 80 hours or whatever your vacation time is that you choose to give yourself. I personally come from being a workaholic. I've spent a lot of time, and if I'm goal oriented. If I know my goal is to predominantly, since I've worked in the gym industry for some time and in different avenues, medical to, basic fitness to expert and or, performance athlete based, and, there's all kinds of different things that I've done. But because there was a goal to write a club or write a location, it was to go in with intense focus. And I've gone, I spent 3 years, and it wasn't until towards the end of the third year that I finally took a 40-hour vacation. That's because of that goal orientation that I have. But I also realized from that there were little bits of factors of resentment that were not really owed to the company. I wasn't being as responsible for my own time and well-being, so I shifted it over and didn't even realize that I was doing it. It wasn't like, well, I've done this, so therefore I had my cognitive resources in my arguments about it, but I wasn't responsible for myself. I gave up pieces of myself to accomplish the goal. So If I know that 3 years of intense focus is going to give me, a easier life because of building something as far as a business goes or something like that, then I will say, okay, I am willing to do this, but I still have to build in these moments where I do get to live and enjoy my life. What happens if I create it and on the end of the 3rd year, I am in a tragic car accident and I'm no longer either able to move or even alive? What have I accomplished? The satisfaction of accomplishing a goal is fantastic, but at the same time, the people in my life will have degrees of not being able to be with me in a way that they get to know all of me. They get to know me while I'm intensely directed towards my goal. So it's not just about you building the good times or the fun times into your life. It's also for your partners. It's for your people in your life. For all of your relationships, family, friends, the new relationships that you're not going to form because you're not out actually enjoying yourself. Build a budget. Make your life completely worth your time. That's a good way of looking at it too. Really, and I'll reiterate that. Make your life worth your time. And make your time worth your life. Have all of the dynamics to it. Have your book of life out in front of you. If you've been following these videos, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't been following these videos or these episodes, start listening to them. You will find out what I'm talking about when I mention the book of life. This is yours. It's your life. It's the same thing in the episode about mind your own business. I'm talking about your life. Your life is your business. Manage your life as it is something that means something to you. At the end of the day, if you find that you're blaming your employer because you haven't taken care of yourself, you're not being responsible for yourself, and you're going to likely sabotage your career in some way. You may stick with the company until you retire, but because of the way that you interacted with people, if you reduce that, the portions of joy that are justified to be joyful, you're going to make yourself less pleasant. And that's going to affect the people around you, your immediate workers, employees, peers, your superiors that interact with you regularly. And then you'll get into the upper management and executives, and they're the ones that'll look at it and say, is this person the one that we want to move up? There's all kinds of variables. Reduce the variables that you can control. That would be negatively impacting your opportunities. And that goes for life, not just business. If you want to have the certain type of person in your life, you're going to do better by being the kind of person that person would find attractive, whether that's physically attractive or just interpersonally attractive. I just like being around that person. Consider those variables versus, I can't wait till they show up. Be in action for your life. It's your life. It's your business. Mind it. Is your time worth your life, and is your life worth your time? As if it's not, time to do something different so that it is. Don't blame other people. Be responsible. If somebody really is responsible for where you're at and not just, I came up with the scheme that they are, perhaps you should look elsewhere. Your partner doesn't agree with you going back to school to learn, then find out what the disagreement's about. And if they're steadfast no matter what in all the conversations you have to better understand it, you steel man their argument. By the way, this is a beautiful piece. There's straw manning an argument and steel manning an argument, and this is a debate concept. And it's what it is when you straw man an argument is where you don't fully understand where they stand, and you project what their argument is, and then you enroll either yourself or the other person or somebody else in the idea that that's where they stand. Versus the steel manning is where you confirm with the other person that what they believe is the case and what you think they believe is the case. Like, well, I think that you're fighting with me based off what you told me. You're upset that I didn't take the trash out. And then the person says, that's correct. Okay. So if that's the case, is it because of the one event or is it because of multiple events? You're upset because of multiple events. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. You are hearing me. Now, you're also upset because you have limited time throughout the day. You have a lot of chores and things that you need to keep up with. And because I didn't do it, it made you feel like it was one more responsibility that I wasn't doing that you needed to take up. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. That's steel manning. versus you don't want me to take out the trash because, you think I'm lazy, but you're really being lazy. That's not necessarily untrue, but it is also not true because you didn't actually build out the details of the argument. You just constructed the immediate surface value belief, and you went off of that. That conversation continuing can turn into more of that, the distancing of what really is detailed truth. It's just superficially true to an extent that can be argued, but not necessarily detailed truth. Like, I don't think that. I don't feel that way. It's not what it's about. Now, when you have that understanding, steel man versus straw man, and the situation whenever you're talking, like the example about going back to school, you go through the steel manning approach before you create you're just not right for me in my life. Try it out. See if that is something that is true. And if it's detailed true and you get all the way down to the bottom of it, perhaps they're ready to settle down, have kids, and or whatever that is, right? Like something that would you going back to school could obstruct that opportunity. Then perhaps that's why they don't want you to go back. And then maybe that is a time for you to make a decision that person may not be right for right now. You have to get through those details before you get to that. I'm not saying leave it. You could come up with different compromises. It's your life. Do what you need to do with your life. But please take the time to understand the details of the truth. That's where you get to the point where, is it worth your life, or is your life worth your time? Is it aligned with your goals? That's really the big picture here. So I'm going to leave it here. Today's video was intended to be a little bit shorter, but it is about make some time for yourself, get outside or whatever it is. If you've been wanting to get on a video game or something, or if you wanted to go out and walk the trails or go to do something water related that is a bit warmer right now, if whatever it is that brings you that sense of joy, that's not going to take away from something that needs to be done, then by all means, find a way of scheduling in your fun, your good times, so that you can make the work worth it while you're going through it, not just the end goal being worth it. All right, with that, thank you so much for watching. Please like, share the video, subscribe if you haven't. If there's people in your life you feel that would really benefit from this video, share this with them. I know that some of the people that have watched it also share this with their family. It is a way of creating at least different insights and ways of communicating or creating conversations that can make a difference. I'm not saying that my conversation would, but it could turn into something by its evolution between you and the people that are listening to it. If you take the critical thinking and the insightful direction, that can very well make a difference for you. So, thank you for those that are doing it. Thank you for watching this. I look forward to the next one. By all means, please also jump over for the podcast if watching the video is something that's not capable, or you're just not in a good space for it, or you don't want the data costs and you want to reduce it. Podcasts typically take less data, whatever it is, as far as your mobile devices, stuff like that. With that, again, this is Chad Everett Brochures. I am the host of Growing Up in the Wilds of Suburbia. Until next time, keep thinking critically. Know that we're in this together, and we can create the life that you want to have. And I do like is your life worth your time, or is your time worth your life? As far as being able to reevaluate so you can make a different track in your life. So, all right, until next time, enjoy.